Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by J.K. Rowling. Chapter 11, Quidditch. Keep out of the way until you catch sight of the snitch, Wood had said. We don't want you attacked before you have to be. When Angelina had scored, Harry had done a couple of loop-de-loops to get out his feelings. Now he was back to staring around for the snitch. Once he caught sight of a flash of gold, but it was just a reflection from one of the Weasley's wristwatches, and once a bludger decided to come pelting his way, more like a cannonball than anything. But Harry dodged it, and Fred Weasley came chasing after it. "All right there, Harry!" He had time to yell as they beat the bludger fiercely towards Marcus Flint. "Slytherin in procession!" Lee Jordan was saying. "Chaser Percy ducks 2 bludgers, 2 Weasleys, and Chaser Bell and Speedsdoor was there." Wait a moment. Was that the snitch? A murmur ran through the crowd as Adrian Percy dropped the quaffle, too busy looking over his shoulder as the flash of gold had passed his left ear. Harry saw it. In a great rush of excitement, he dived slowwards after a streak of gold. Slytherin seeker Terence Higgs had seen it, too. Neck and neck, they hurled it toward the snitch. All the chasers seemed to have forgotten what they were supposed to do, and as they hung in midair to watch. Harry was faster than Higgs. He could see the little round ball with fluttering darting up ahead. He put on an extra spurt of speed. Wham! A roar of rage echoed from the Gryffindors below. Marcus Flint had blocked Harry on purpose, and Harry's broom spun, of course. Harry holding on for dear life. "Fool!" screamed the Gryffindors. Madam Hooch spoke angrily to Flint and then ordered a free shot at the gold spots for Gryffindor. But in all the confusion, of course, the golden snitch had disappeared from sight again. Down in the stands, Dean Thomas was yelling, "Send him off, Red! Red card!" "This isn't football, Dean," Ron reminded him. "You can't send people off in Quidditch. And what's a red card?" But Hagrid was on Dean's side. The out had changed the rules. Flint couldn't knock Harry after the air. Lee Jordan was finding it difficult not to take sides. So, after that obvious and disgusting bit of cheating... "Jordan!" growled Professor McGonagall. "I mean, after the open and revolting fool..." "Jordan, I'm warning you." All right. Flint nearly kills the Gryffindor Seeker, which could happen to anyone, I'm sure. So pendle to Gryffindor, taking but Snippet, who puts it away, no trouble, and we continue play. Gryffindor still in procession. It was as Harry dodged another bludger, which went spinning dangerously past his head, it happened. His broom gave a sudden, frightening lurch. For a split second, he thought he was going to fall. He gripped the broom tightly with his both hands and knees. He'd never felt anything like that. It happened again. It was as though the broom was trying to back him off, but Nimbus 2000 did not suddenly decide to back their riders off. Harry tried to turn back towards the Gryffindor goal spots. He said he had a half a mind to ask Wood to call time out, and then he realized that his broom was completely out of his control. He couldn't turn it. He couldn't direct it at all. It was zigzagging through the air and every now and then making violent swishing movements, which almost unseated him. Lee was still commentating. "Slytherin procession. Flint with the quaffle, passes Spinnet, passes Bell. Hit the heart and face by a bludger. Holted broke his nose. Only joking. Professor, Slytherin score. Oh no." The Slytherins were chilling. No one seemed to have noticed that Harry's broom was behaving strangely. It was carrying him slowly higher away from the game, jerking and twitching as it went. "Do you know what Harry thinks he's doing?" Hagrid mumbled. He stared through the binoculars. "If I didn't know better, I'd say he lost control of his broom. But he can't have." Suddenly, people were pointing up at Harry all over the stands. His broom had started to roll over and over, with him only just managing to hold on. Then the whole crowd gasped. Harry's broom had given a wild jerk, and Harry swung off it. He was now dangling from it, holding on with only one hand. "Did something happen to it when Flint blocked him?" Seamus whispered. "Can't have," said Hagrid, his voice shaken. "Can't nothing in friends with a broomstick except powerful dark magic. No kid could do that for a Nimbus 2000. At these words, Hermione sized Hagrid's binoculars, but instead of looking up at Harry, she started looking fiercely at the crowd. "What are you doing?" moaned Ron, gray-faced. "I knew it!" Hermione gasped. "Snape, look!" Ron grabbed their binoculars. Snape was in the middle of the stands opposite them. He had his eyes fixed on Harry and was muttering non-stop underneath the breeze. He's doing it something jinxing the broom, said Hermione. What should we do? Leave it to me. Before Ron could say another word, Hermione had disappeared. Ron turned the binoculars back on Harry. His broom was vibrating so hard, it was almost impossible for him to hang on much longer. The whole crowd were on their feet and watching, terrified. The Weasleys flew up to try, but nothing happened. They dropped lower and second beneath him, obviously hoping to catch him if he fell. Marcus Flint seized the quaffle and scored 5 times without anyone noticing. Come on, Hermione, Ron muttered desperately. Hermione had fought her way across the stand where Snape stood and was now racing along the row behind him. She didn't even stop to say sorry as she knocked Professor Quirrell head first into the row up front. Reaching Snape, she crouched down, pulled out her wand and whispered a few well-chosen words. Bright blue flames shot from her wand onto the hem of Snape's robes. It took perhaps 30 seconds for Snape to realize that he was on fire. A sudden yelp told her she had done her job. Scooping the fire off him into a little jar in her pocket, she scrambled back along the row. Snape would never know what happened. It was enough. Up in the air, Harry was suddenly able to clamber back on his broom. Neville, you can look! Ron said. Neville had been sobbing into Hagrid's jacket for the last 5 minutes. Harry was speeding towards the ground when the crowd saw him clapping his hand to his mouth as though he was about to be sick. He hit the pitch on all fours, coughed, and something gold fell into his hand. I've got the snitch! He shouted, waving it about his head, and the game ended in complete confusion. He didn't catch it. He nearly swallowed it. Flint was still howling 20 minutes later, but it made no difference. Harry hadn't broken any rules, and Lee Jordan was still happily shouting the result. Gryffindor had won by 170 points to 60! Harry heard none of this, though. He was being made a cup of strong tea back in Hagrid's hut with Ron and Hermione. It was Snape, Ron was explaining. Hermione and I saw him. He was cursing your broomstick, muttering. He wouldn't take his eyes off you. Rubbish, said Hagrid, who hadn't heard a word of he was gone next to him in the stands. Why would Snape do something like that? Harry, Ron, and Hermione looked at each other, wondering what to tell him. Harry decided on the truth. I found out something about him, he told Hagrid. He tried to get past the 3-headed dog at Halloween. It bit him. We think he was trying to steal whatever it's guarding. Hagrid dropped the teapot. How do you know about Fluffy? He said. Fluffy? Yeah, he's mine. But I saw a Greek chappie I met in the pub last year. I lent him to the Dumbledore to guard the... Yes? Said Harry eagerly. Now, don't ask me any more, said Hagrid. But Snape's trying to steal it. Rubbish, said Hagrid again. Snape's a Hogwarts teacher. He'd do nothing of the sort. So why did he try and kill Harry? Cried Hermione. That afternoon's events certainly seem to have changed their mind about Snape. I know a jinx when I see one. Hagrid, I've read all about them. You got to keep eye contact, and Snape wasn't blinking at all. I saw him. I'm telling ya, you're wrong, said Hagrid hotly. I don't know why Harry's broom acted like that, but Snape wouldn't try and kill his students. Now, listen to me, all 3 of ya. You're meddling things that can't then, yeah. It's dangerous. You forget the dog and you forget what's guarding. That's between Professor Dumbledore and Nicholas Flamel. Aha! Said Harry. So there's someone called Nicholas Flamel involved, is here? Harry looked fiercely with himself.